The Paris Agreement is an international treaty that was signed by 195 countries and the European Union at the Conference of Parties, also known as COP21, that took place in Paris in November 2015. So the agreement was then ratified by, or was supposed to be ratified by each country's parliament. And to date, 192 countries and the European Union have ratified this treaty. The treaty stipulates that the countries, the signatories, will work together to maintain the increase in temperatures from before the industrial era to 2 degrees and make all the efforts to maintain it at below 1.5 degrees. To achieve this, we will have to collectively to reduce carbon emissions by 2050, bring them down to what we call the net zero. And in order to achieve this, to start with, we're going to have to reduce these emissions by an average of 7% every year, until 2030. Now, this sounds like an onerous task, and unfortunately, since the treaty was signed, we have noticed that emissions have actually increased. And estimates are now that there's only a 5% chance that we will be able to achieve the 2 degree and the net zero by 2050. Emissions are mostly the fact of industrialized countries. As an example, China and the US together represent about 40% of emissions, so just those 2 countries. And if you remember in 2017, then President Trump said that he would withdraw the US from the agreement, which was a major blow. But fortunately and symbolically, in his first day in office on January 20th, 2021, President Joe Biden decided that the US would rejoin the agreement. I think this is important because it brings all the countries together under one single agreement, under one single umbrella, with one single goal, and that is to reduce emissions and to save the climate. It brings them together with a task that has to start today, that had to start yesterday. We acknowledge that there is an issue and we have to address it now. We have to maintain the temperatures at below 2 degrees increase relative to the pre-industrialized era. We have to aim for 0 emissions by 2050. So having these very simple targets, I think makes it easy for everybody to acknowledge what needs to be done. In order to achieve these goals, we have 2 tools. One is mitigation and one is adaptation. Adaptation means that we will have to change the way we function. We have to change the way we produce energy. We have to change the way we produce manufactured goods. We have to change the way we live our daily lives. And mitigation means that because we will not be able to reduce emissions to absolutely 0, we have to compensate the remainder of those emissions. We have to compensate them with either systems that absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, or we have to develop what we call natural sinks. And these are forests or mangroves that absorb naturally the carbon dioxide that is in the atmosphere. The asset management industry has an interesting role to play because we can decide as investors where we want to direct our investments. And one thing we can do is that we can help those industries that are making the effort, those companies that are making the effort. Typically, we can decide that we will invest more in a company that manufactures electric cars rather than in a company that manufactures traditional cars. Or we can invest more in an energy company that implements solar and wind farms rather than a company that burns coal to produce electricity. We can also invest in companies and technologies that will create those mitigation systems, that will create these systems that will help remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. There will be an increase in regulation. There will be an increase in what is called the carbon tax. Companies are going to be taxed more and more on the amount of emissions. Some of these companies that emit a lot and that are not able to adapt and reduce their emissions, they will face increasing bills of taxes. And as a result, they will become less profitable for investors. And as investors, we will shun these companies and we will invest in the companies that are more virtuous and that function better. Because we are only the stewards of these assets that we are investing, our clients are going to put pressure on us, and they are going to say increasingly, we do not want to invest in the thermal coal companies. We do not want to invest in the oil companies that explore in the Arctic. We want to invest in the companies that produce electric cars, that insulate houses better, etc. So our clients are going to put the pressure on us, asset managers, to invest in a righteous way, so to speak.